Today, the subcommittee is meeting to consider a discussion draft of the Compact of Free Association Amendment Act of 2023. This legislation aims to renew the economic provisions of the Compact of Free Association between the United States and with the Republic of Palau, Republic of the Marshall Islands, and the Federated States of Micronesia, known collectively as the FAS. The bill would do this by approving the agreement signed between the United States and the 3 FAS countries, continuing the mutually beneficial relationship that the U.S. has with the FAS. First and foremost, I offer congratulations to Ambassador Yun and the U.S. COFA negotiation team on signing the agreements with the RMI earlier this week. That is fantastic news. Thank you for your hard work. Ambassador Yun, we know this was not an easy task and that you have personally decided to extend your term as special envoy to ensure the completion of these agreements. Through the COFA agreements, the United States and the FAS have a special relationship that is unlike any other. In return for U.S. economic assistance and access to U.S. federal programs, the U.S. has exclusive rights to build military bases and installations in the FAS and has the right to strategically deny any foreign military from entering FAS waters, including our adversaries. These extraordinary defense and security rights are more important today than ever before. We are in perilous times in which the Chinese Communist Party seeks to displace the U.S. leadership and to dominate the Indo-Pacific. The CCP fully understands the strategic importance of the FAS for the United States, and the CCP has waged information, political, and economic warfare against the FAS in an attempt to undermine United States interests. The Compact of Free Association Amendments Act of 2023 would protect U.S. national security and interests by ensuring that the FAS remain economically resilient and can push back against PRC influence for the next 20 years. This legislation would help the U.S. maintain a position of strength for the decades to come. Beyond the security benefits, the U.S. has had a long history of partnership with the 3 FAS countries. I had the privilege of joining my colleagues on a CODEL to these countries and have personally met with the FAS leaders and citizens. It was abundantly clear from these meetings that the people of the FAS are increasingly concerned about PRC influence and want continued close partnership with the United States. It is our responsibility today to ensure we continue and strengthen this partnership for the years to come. This conversation and this discussion draft is a start. This bill touches virtually every committee in the House. This not only reflects the importance of the COFA agreements, but also the special nature of the United States relationship with the FAS. As such, nearly every committee has equities in the discussion draft we are going to be reviewing today. We are actively working with relevant committees on several provisions within this discussion draft, and we are making sure with them that the items within their particular jurisdiction are not impacted. The House Natural Resource Committee has and continues to work in a bipartisan and bicameral manner with our House and Senate colleagues. In doing so, we are trying to be unified and show just how important these relationships are. It is imperative that we work together to preserve the important relationship with the United States that the United States has with the FAS while protecting U.S. interests and counting Chinese Communist Party influence. I want to thank all our witnesses for appearing before the subcommittee today, and I look forward to a robust discussion on this important issue. In terms of accountability, do any of the FAS governments qualify as low-risk oddities?
We'll get an answer to you that I'm not sure myself at the moment, but we'll look into it.
What about you, Ms. Cantor? Do you know the answer to that question?
Ma'am, I don't know the answer, but we will get you an answer.
Wonderful, thank you. Do you know how the administration intends to work to ensure that the FAS remain committed and held accountable to their requirements and deadlines? Again, Mr. Ambassador, do you know what how they will ensure accountability?
So there are many provisions. Accountability has been, in fact, one of our biggest effort to, number one, to make it more efficient. So on some things like reporting requirement, we have reduced them to make sure they are on time. I think the item they complained is there are too many reports and too frequent reports. So on some reports, from quarterly, we will go down to semi-annual. On other accountability issues, again, we will have regular audits. So I do believe the standard of accountability has not suffered. We've made it more efficient.
Ms. Cantor, do you have anything to add to that?
Ma'am, other than what Ambassador Yun said, we really work with these three countries to ensure that we were listening to them and we made the process more efficient. Like he said, less reporting, but more oversight and accountability provisions. So.
Okay. The U.S. has previously established an interagency group on freely associated state affairs through an executive order in 1986. However, it appears that this group became defunct in the early 2000s. Ms. Cantor, can you commit to making sure that your office understands that if the Interagency Group on Freely Associated States is established under this legislation, that we would expect that the group would actually convene and carry out its responsibilities until Congress no longer deems it necessary?
Yes, I commit.
Okay. Ambassador Yun, this discussion draft significantly increases the Department of State's equities in COFA implementation. Why do you believe this is necessary?
I do think there has been, over the past 2 decades, erosion of some diplomatic oversight and engagement with the Pacific. The Biden administration has tried to change that. The results are obvious. We've had 2 summit level. There's been 2 Pacific summit, one last year, one this year. In addition, we have opened a number of missions in the Pacific, and of course, the higher level engagement in Compact. I think for that momentum to be sustained at political and diplomatic level, I certainly would see the language you put in the Compact Amendment to create an office for FAS as entirely appropriate. There was an office of FAS some 40 years ago, but that disappeared after about 10 years or so. So for you to have language there, I think is a good step.
Well, Mr. Ambassador, in your negotiations, did the FAS raise any concerns about the Department of State's lack of engagement and U.S. diplomatic presence?
FAS have raised that more than one occasion. And so I do think with your support, I do think, and also renewed interest for the Pacific, the State Department certainly. I don't think the Interior Department is, certainly the implementation has been going well, but I think at diplomatic level, further attention is called for. Thank you.
The funding going to the RMI has been divided up into several categories of funding. While several of these are a continuation from the 2003 compact with the RMI, there are several new categories such as Kwajalein Atoll Master Plan. Can you provide any detail on what these new categories are and why they are necessary?
I think members of the subcommittee who went to eBay would recognize very well the infrastructure update that is needed in eBay, which is just, essentially a causeway away from Kwajalein. Most of the labor force who work in Kwajalein comes from eBay. Yet that area is tremendously overcrowded, lack of power facilities, lack of roadways, and so on. So a big chunk of our money will go to upgrading infrastructure around Kwajalein. So that's a new element in our funding. Second new element, I would say, is the help we will give through the new trust fund. We call it extraordinary needs. Traditionally, compact has supported the following sectors: education, health, infrastructure, and, and environment. But there is a need, because a lot of farms have been inundated with salt water, a lot of other, especially isolated islands. So we will be giving through the new trust fund these isolated areas, small islands that needs more help. And so those two are, I would say, major new areas for RMI.